from?
I come from Canada, in Toronto specifically, like an hour east of Toronto, really small town. And then my show, which people see behind there, I film in Niagara Falls, so not too far from the U.S. border.
No kidding. So and just hold it as close as you can
Oh,
because
sorry.
there's so
Okay.
much background noise.
Yes.
So wait. So is that a journey for you from where you live and where you film at?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So I only film once a week, which still can be a lot with school and everything for sure. So I take the train in because I'm 16, so I only have my G1, which in Canada, basically you have to, like, you can be the passenger, but you can't be the driver. You can drive, but with a passenger. So it's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun all at the same time. Obviously still in school too, which is going to start in Canada. It doesn't start up again until September. So we got some time and just really making the most of the summer.
So I'm just loving this. You're 16.
Yeah, 16,
And
yeah.
you take the train to Niagara Falls. You do filming once a week.
Yeah.
And then you're not just online. You're also on.
Yeah, so the News Forum is a Canadian cable network that I do my show on, which for people watching, obviously, in the United States, I always compare the News Forum to like News Nation in the United States, so very middle, kind of balanced, middle of the road. Former conservative politicians in Canada, everyone from like the former health minister in Canada to the former minister of finance in Canada, both of whom were conservatives, to like the former liberal, deputy prime minister. Like there's a whole bunch of different people who are on the network who are former politicians, and then there's also some journalists. So just kind of trying to be like as balanced as possible. Nonpartisanship is certainly a good thing, and trying to incorporate all perspectives. And so, yeah, I mean, my show generally tends to focus more on the American side of things, just because everything that happens in the United States has a way of kind of trickling down and impacting Canadian politics as well. So really just trying to, again, include all perspectives and understanding that even if people have disagreements, they can talk through those disagreements. And the people who oftentimes disagree with one another, there can still be one, maybe two issues where they can identify it and agree on them. And so I think oftentimes people underestimate the fact that we are actually quite similar in our political viewpoints. And it's just sometimes the issues that we disagree on that we're the most vocal about.
16 years old. You're sure, right? There's 16.
16, grade 11.
Loving this. Okay, I have family in Canada as well, so it's
Cool.
beautiful. Mississauga, just a beautiful
Okay.
city. One of the nicest cities I've been
Yeah.
to. At least the parts I went to were super awesome.
Yeah, no, it's great. So, I mean, Toronto is certainly the big one, but there's a lot of different cities outside of Toronto,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they're all. I'm not a huge fan of like the downtown area of Toronto. Just it's just very busy. Some people love that. I don't. But going around and outside into different parts of Canada, there's lots of, even in kind of our eastern provinces. Halifax and Nova Scotia's certainly places I like, having dinner along like the rivers and stuff. So yeah, certainly it's a great country,
so
and
good.
there's a lot to like about it.
So given your approach, that you just described, you attend conservative events, you attend liberal events. You're really trying to get good information out there. So based on all that, if I were to ask you, in the States, we got a lot of hot topics, right? So right now, there's concern about immigration, right?
Yeah.
We have people that are in this country that came into this country without immigration, just walked across. I came across the hard way. I got a visa, then I applied for residency, then permanent, then citizenship. So we have that, and then a number of those people, some of them have committed crimes. Some of them are actually on voter rolls voting, so we have that. And then we've got stuff like the Epstein files that seems to be catching a lot of attention now. And it seems like people are very divided on these
Yeah.
topics. So what, after talking to all the people you've spoken with, and as a 16-year-old person with a really good insight, what would you say to the audience in terms of ways to think about these kinds of things that may be different from the polarizing, explosive headlines that are out there?
Yeah, I mean, what I like about what I'm able to do is I kind of act as like the person who is distributing the information rather than the person who is giving my opinions, and then other people can, develop their own opinions, and they are the ones who can be opinionated. Those people, of course, being the people who watch my show. Because I think, it's great that there's a lot of opinion hosts out there, but I think right now the people who are opinion hosts, sometimes they, sugarcoat their own facts because they want, they confuse facts with opinion. And so I try not to do that. Obviously, there's some great opinion hosts, like I said, but those are also people who have worked up over the course of their career and who have reached kind of the top of the ladder, so to speak. And so most of the good quality opinion hosts, people like Megyn Kelly, for example, are people who have worked in the field of journalism and news for a really long time. They understand still what good kind of quality journalism looks like. So even when they're giving their opinions, they are still cautious that they're not distributing any false information. Whereas I think the mistake right now is a lot of people try and go right into the opinion side without understanding what good quality, true investigative journalism actually looks like. So that's kind of what I try and do. And again, a lot of that is talking with people from all sides of the spectrum. So if you have a liberal on, then you better be sure that you have a conservative on right after them to ensure that you are balancing that. And so we had an election campaign in Canada recently, and like my personal goal with every show that I did on the Canadian election campaign was to ensure that if I am doing a panel discussion, for example, then I have one representative from each of the parties. Or if I am doing, a series on whatever topic, just making sure that all viewpoints are included. Because if you don't, then, you kind of get confused, and you oftentimes will think that people are interpreting your viewpoints a certain way solely based off of what your guest is saying.
Wow, it's so good. I wish a lot more of our journalists would take a cue from what you're saying. Let's switch topics real quick. So, thank you for that. That was fantastic. I love the way you said that. I love the way you presented that. I think that's a gap that we have that people like you can fill.
Hopefully, it's a goal.
Right? Yeah. So now, doing what you're doing as a young adult, I'm assuming that most of your peers, at least age-wise, are not doing what you're doing. So what's that like, just on a personal level? You've kind of charted your own course, doing something quite different from what other people are doing. So how has that impacted you personally? What opportunities, what hardships, if any? What does that look like for you personally?
It's interesting, right? Because when you're at a place like this, you're kind of in a bubble where you're with a whole bunch of young people, and you just automatically assume that other young people are engaged and interested in politics in the same way that you are. But going back to school in Canada, I'm in a unique situation. I'm just a day student, but my school is a boarding school. So I'm actually with people from all over the world. And so again, even when I'm there, I think that their actually engagement in politics and interest in politics is still heightened from that of the average kind of everyday, teenager or young person in whether it be Canada or the United States, because people at my school are people who are coming from really complex kind of geopolitical environments. There's one of my best friends at school lives in South Korea. So like people from all over the world, as I said, and they just have these viewpoints that are actually developed by real world experiences. And I think that's one of the problems both in Canada and the United States is that oftentimes people will take a viewpoint without having any practical experience. And you see that again with a lot of the kind of geopolitical commentary where people make certain opinions and viewpoints, but they don't actually have kind of the material real world experience that can allow them to be informed on some of these issues. So that's one component of it. But I do think that the tide is starting to shift, right? I think a lot of young people who weren't previously engaged in politics are starting to take an interest. Oftentimes there's a lot of negative things that are said about social media and news on social media. I actually think it's a good thing if we can ensure that all of the information on there is factually correct, because it's a way for young people to get their news and to get engaged in really short, sound bites, 15, 30 seconds, if you will. And even if they're not tuning into, long form podcast discussions or interviews, even like the one we're doing right now, it's still an easy way for them to get informed and engaged, because unfortunately the reality is the average young person isn't going to be turning on the 6 o'clock news in the same way that people of older generations might to get their news. And again, that's one thing also that I think the news has been slow to adapt to, even companies like the one I work with, because they are still having this hard time of wanting to do everything the way that it's always been done, because that's like the correct way, so to speak, without realizing that the way that things have been done for decades upon decades is not working. It's failing our generation, and it's making our generation cynical and apathetic towards politics. So really, again, just really trying to, I guess, change the way we do things while still keeping it all facts-based and all, in my case, as nonpartisan as possible.
Wow, that was so good, Wyatt. We're talking to Wyatt. We're here at Turning Point USA at the Student Action Summit, and just fabulous conversations. The only one I've had this whole day like this, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
And if people want to get more information about you, follow you, check out your news, how do people find you?
Yeah, so my cable show that people see there is on the newsforum.ca, and then I'm on YouTube as well, so people can go there. Really, all social media.
Got it. Newsforum.ca. That's for Canada. Newsforum.ca. Love it. Our neighbors to the north. And on YouTube, you mentioned, what do they search for?
Just my name, Wyatt Sharp, and it'll come right on up.
All right. We're talking to Wyatt Sharp. Thank you for that, Wyatt. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Happy to.
And